It's about that time for another Patreon topic video, girlies. So I'm happy to see that some of you are going over to patreon.com/AsianExpression and signing up. If you haven't done so, I would ask that you consider doing so. If you didn't know, and I don't know how you wouldn't know at this point because I've been so annoyingly loud about it, but I'm about to give y'all the first episode of the Expression podcast on October 8th. That means you need to get with the program. Like I said, going over to patreon.com/AsianExpression. Those of you who signed up for the $5 tier or higher will have access to all these episodes. I want to keep everything that's going on about the podcast over there on patreon.com because I want my patrons to be able to give me suggestions on what to cover, give me topics that they want me to cover, write me letters, even in the comments. You can write me responses, give me suggestions. I am ready to do it. I really want to thank those of you who have been very encouraging, very supportive when I was talking about starting this podcast. A lot of you have been really adamant about the fact that I needed to get to start my own podcast. So that's exactly what I did. I hope that you will enjoy it when the episode comes out on October 8th. This is kind of like a new landscape doing it on my own, so I'm very, very excited. I did have a special guest on the first episode, Ocean Kelly. I know I've talked about him a lot, but I wanted to, like I said in the podcast, formally introduce you guys to him. So please make sure you go to patreon.com/AsianExpression, sign up and check it out. So as you know, every other Monday we have these Patreon topic videos. I present a couple of topics to the highest tier on Patreon and they get to pick which one we end up discussing that following Monday. And it looks like since I'm doing these podcast episodes every other week that these Patreon videos will align with when the podcast will be released. So that's cool. So the topic that won for this video was simply prioritize yourself. And this is going to be a very interesting video to make because I will essentially be preaching to myself. But that's what these videos are about anyway in the first place. And so when I say prioritize yourself, I think that people who are empathetic or people who are really empathetic and they can tell, I think that they have to pay attention to this, and that includes me. I think that we have to really be careful who we surround ourselves with because people will see our authenticity, they will see our willingness to give, or just the fact that we don't like to see other people suffer, and people who are malicious will come and try and take advantage of that. When I say prioritize yourself, I mean you can't run around building houses for 10 people. That's just a very simple example. You can't run around building 10 houses for people if you are hungry. You see what I'm saying? You can't exert yourself or give up yourself if there's nothing to give in the first place. So I think that we should, as willing as we are to try and save other people and move mountains and move the stars in the sky to save other people, that we have to make sure that we're doing that for ourselves as well. I think in certain cases that personality type, because we all know it, and if you don't know anybody who's like that, then it's probably you. But we all know the personality type who would give of themselves so much that you're kind of concerned, that you're like, okay, sis, like I understand that you're trying to help somebody, but we need to make sure that you have food on your plate first. Like you can't just, So I think that what goes into building those types of personalities is obviously, the person itself. But I think that sometimes maybe the family upbringing can have a lot to do with it, as well as the culture that you're in, right? So I know family plus culture, that might mean because you are younger, because of your position in the family or position in the culture or position in wherever that you were brought up in, you are always required to take care of somebody else. And even if you expressed your needs, even if you expressed your desires, they weren't taking that seriously because you were, that role that you played in that family or that culture was simply to take care of other people. And so when you get out of that situation, when you get out of that family or those tight controls of the culture, you may see yourself maintaining those same types of personality traits outside of that. You may see yourself like, damn, why did I exhaust my bank account or emotionally deplete myself for this person when I could have been investing in myself? Maybe because of your upbringing, you were mandated, you were forced to do certain things, forced to put other people's needs above your own. And now that you're in an adult space or a more adult space, you start to see how that may be negatively impacting your life. Now, I'm not saying don't help people because that would be a ridiculous statement, but I'm saying when it goes to the extreme, you giving 110% of you when you're running on fumes, I think that can be really destructive. And then we have to really look internally and figure out why we're doing that. Is it because we're looking for validation or approval, or is it because we're triggered by certain situations that people are going through and we don't want them to even experience the trauma that we had to go through, and we see ourselves in them, and so we're trying to pick them up even though we have fallen and don't have the power to pick someone up at this moment in time? You see what I'm saying? I think that if you start to notice that it's negatively affecting your life, your progression, then that's something that we should really think seriously about dealing with. And of course, I'm not dumb. I know that in life, in relationships, in friendships, and whatever it is, there is sacrifice that is required. Especially if you care about somebody, there's going to be a point in time where you're going to have to sacrifice, or you feel because you love this person, I will sacrifice X, Y, and Z. But if it comes to a point where in this particular interaction, or in this particular relationship, or in this particular, group of friends, or whatever it is, you're always the one sacrificing yourself, that's something that you have to think about completely differently. Especially if you're sacrificing yourself and the other people notice. Even if they don't, that's also something that you have to address. But especially if they notice, and on top of that, they don't care, or they're not trying to give anything back, that's when you're like, okay, we got to rethink some things. And I think we have to really remember, and this may come from, like I said, upbringing or how you're trained, but we have to remember that it is not selfish to not want to sacrifice yourself all the goddamn time, okay? It is not selfish to want to sit your ass down and not be bothered and reap some of the shit that you have sown. It's not selfish. So if there's a situation where it's constantly requiring you to empty out your whole being, empty out your whole self, your whole bank account, empty out your whole everything that you've invested all the time, then that may not be a healthy situation for you to be in. And like I said, there's nothing self-centered about not wanting to be depleted. So over here at Adrian Expression, we are very solution-based. So if you find that you're one of those people who do that all the time, or if you even think that you are, or you can see how you've given so much negatively, adversely affecting your life, then how do you move from a space like that? I think, because it's still hard for me, I think that you have to start practicing saying no. You have to start saying, okay, I'll do this, but here's where I draw the line. You set boundaries because, like I said, maybe in your upbringing, you are not allowed to set those boundaries for yourself. But now that you are a grown-ass adult, or those of you who are watching this, now you get to set the boundaries for yourself. So if you've been used to not having any and just people coming and taking and going like it's some type of pantry that's open to the public, now you get to close the door. And it's like I said, it's not selfish. It's not like you're mean or an evil person. Now you get to close that door, especially if you're in a place where it's like, I don't have anything to give. Now you get to set the boundaries, and it will be difficult because especially if you're not a person who's ever practiced saying no to anybody, it will feel foreign because you haven't done it before. It will feel weird. It will feel like, oh, damn, I'm being mean. No, you're not. You're self-preserving. You know what I mean? You're making sure that you're okay so that you can give in a reasonable way in the future. Because if you just empty yourself out right now, there's going to be nothing left of you to give. So I think that you practice saying no a couple of times. I'll do that, not that. I'm not going to do that, but I'll help you out here. I can't do all of what you're asking, but I can meet you halfway. I can give a compromise. I think that is a perfect place to start. And then as develop, as you see the consequences of your actions, as you watch your life improve, as you interact with other people, you'll have more of a sense of self when it comes to your generosity or what type of energy you want in your circles. And the more you practice it, the stronger that you'll become. But honestly, it is so hard, especially because I know it may not seem like it for how I be reading and dragging it sometimes, but my heart can really feel for people sometimes. Even when I don't have everything or don't have as much support or foundation as I know I need to if I'm going to be giving something to somebody, even when I don't, I will still do it, and I have to be careful not to empty myself out. So I know it can be very difficult, but if you want to be here for a long time, you're gonna have to start taking care of yourself. Even if that means making people wait or shutting them down a couple of times, you're gonna have to start investing in yourself and not letting the bottom come out of the bucket that is your soul just so that other people can thrive or whatever they think is thriving at the time. And like I said, we have to be very careful about people with malicious intent, because they will see your generosity, they will see your willingness to connect, and they will take complete and total advantage of it. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I know I was kind of all over the place. I was trying to focus it. Hopefully it makes sense. Please tell me if you're someone who can relate to this. So yeah, share your stories in the comments, help each other through it. Shit, help me through it. I really want to thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world. And please go over to patreon.com/AdrianExpression, the podcast. I'm really excited to share this with you guys. Like I said, I really appreciate your support and y'all always pushing me to expand the brand, like I always talk about. But yeah, that's all I have to say, and make sure that you have a good goddamn evening.